So this protoplast hybrid, I will put it in a suitable nutrient media. I will grow on a suitable nutrient media. And from this, a new plantlet will generate. So here, there is one particular bacteria, which is one of the best examples for a single cell protein. It is called as the Methylophilus methylotrophus. The methylotrophus is a bacteria which is the best example for a single cell protein. Mushroom, it actually provides protein, and studies have found out that protein content is equivalent to that of the animal meat. Hello everyone, a warm welcome to the last session of chapter 9 of second PUC, that is strategies for enhancement in food production. I am Dr. Divya, biology faculty, Vidyashram Pre-University College, Mysore, Temple of Excellence. So in the previous session of this chapter, we had discussed about the greenhouse effect, wherein we understood that from 1960, since the advent of the plant breeding techniques, it brought about a revolution in the development of the food industry, wherein because of the hybridization and techniques involved in plant breeding, hybrids of different cereal crops and fruits or vegetables were being made, which was able to fulfill the demand of the growing population. And that is when it was said that the green revolution started. And we also studied about what are the different types of crops that were made using the plant breeding techniques, and also we studied how different strategies were involved in order to incorporate plant breeding techniques in order to produce or make crops that are free of diseases or which have resistant to diseases, crops that have high yielding capacity, or crops that not only give good yield but also the quantity of the yield is very good in terms of nutrients, minerals, vitamins and all that, wherein we studied it in the term biofortification. In today's session of this particular chapter, we shall study about single cell proteins and tissue culture. To begin with, we shall start with single cell proteins. So we all know that as the population increase of a particular country, the demand for food also increases. But proteins cannot be, or in other ways I can say, protein is the one that is got from meat. Of course, there are other vegetable sources of proteins as well, that is the green gram and all that. But animal protein can be got only from the animals or from the meat of the animals, right? So to fulfill the demand of such big population, that amount of meat cannot be supplied. Say for example, per house, if to buy 1 kg of meat, in that amount he can buy somewhere around more than 10 kgs of vegetables, right? So that is how it is. So but here what happens is, as the population grows, the demand for meat cannot be fulfilled on a regular basis, right? So at that time, how can we depend on, or how do we get proteins? What are the different sources of proteins other than that? So what they are nothing but the single cell proteins. So single cell proteins are nothing but those proteins which form an alternate for the animal protein. So they are alternate sources of proteins for animals and human nutrition. So unlike instead of eating meat or instead of getting proteins from the meat, this single cell proteins can be an alternative to the meat protein. And the best example is that of the microbes. Microbes are some of the best single cell proteins that can be consumed, be it the fungi, that is mushrooms. One best example I can give you is of mushroom. So mushroom is a fungi. So mushroom, it actually provides protein, and studies have found out that protein content is equivalent to that of the animal meat. So mushroom is one such microbe which is the best example. So most of the microbes, they are single cell proteins which we can consume instead of consuming meat to fulfill a protein dietary source. And microbes are being grown on a large industrial scale as a source of good protein. So what are the different microbes that are grown in order to be sold as single cell proteins in order to meet the demand or the protein consumption of the people? We shall study. So here there is one particular bacteria which is one of the best example for a single cell protein. It is called as the Methylophilus methylotrophus. The methylotrophus is a bacteria which is the best example for a single cell protein. So these are bacterial species such as, that is the bacterial species Methylophilus methylotrophus. They are used as a source of single cell protein because of its high rate biomass production. So bacteria, within few hours you can culture them and double them, right? So one bacteria can be produced into a colony of bacteria within seconds. So the growth rate is very fast, and because of that, or in other words, I can say the biomass production of bacteria is very quick, and it is very fast because bacteria is a fast growing organism. Their reproduction capacity is quite more, and the growth is also quite more, and it can be expected to produce 25 tons of protein. So 25 tons of proteins can be got from the culture of these particular bacteria, that is Methylophilus methylotrophus. So this is one of the best single cell proteins, and these bacteria can be used for various in the form of various dietary supplements and all that, in order to meet the protein requirement of the a particular person who is consuming it. So this is Methylophilus bacteria, which is one of the best example for a single cell protein. So next, talking about one more example is the blue-green algae. So blue-green algae is also called as the cyanobacteria. So one of the best example for blue-green algae is spirulina. So spirulina can be grown very easily in materials like wastewater, and also they can be grown on straw, then molasses, animal manure, and even sewage. Using all that, the spirulina can be grown. Institute which grows spirulina on a large scale is the CFTRI, that is the Central Food Technological Research Institute, that is there in Mysore. So they also grow the spirulina to a larger extent, that is they produce a eatable which is called as the groundnut. It is made a sweet that is made out of groundnut. So for that they add this spirulina. So that spirulina proteins, the children and all that, when they consume that particular sweet that is made out of the groundnut, some amount of protein can enter into them. So they use spirulina to make certain eatables and all that. So likewise, as I was talking about the blue-green algae, that is spirulina, which is nothing but a cyanobacteria, it contains large amounts of proteins in them, and growing them is also very easy. They can be grown easily on materials like wastewater. So any potato processing industry or units and all, whatever waste they remove, because it will contain starch, right? So on that starch waste water, these spirulinas can be grown easily, and also they can be grown easily on straw, on molasses and animal manure, and even in sewage water also they can be grown very easily. And they usually, the spirulina multiplies very fast, and it can be produced very easily on a large scale, and they can also be served as a food which is rich in protein, minerals. They are also rich in fats, carbohydrates, and they are also rich in vitamins. So growing of spirulina is also easy. These are the freshwater spirulinas that you have seen. They will be collected, they will be processed, dried and powdered and made into the tablet form, which is available in the market. Even for diabetic patients also, tablets like these spirulina tablets are of very good. It is a very good dietary supplement for the diabetic patients as well. And not just this, I told you there are eatables that are made by using the spirulina powder, dried spirulina powder, because it is a best source of the proteins. They are called single celled because all these are unicellular organisms. The bacteria that I spoke about earlier was also a unicellular organism. This algae, that is cyanobacteria, which is a blue-green algae, that is spirulina, it is also a single celled organism. So the proteins are derived from a single celled organism here. So here the culture of the spirulina is very easy, and also the utilization of, that is the culture of spirulina, also it decreases the environmental pollution. So it decreases the environmental pollution as well, or it also treats the particular water in which it is growing. So that is why spirulina is also useful for treating the environmental pollution, as well as it is a good source of the protein. So for both of these purposes it can be used. Next, talking about mushrooms. Mushroom is one of the best source of proteins, and who doesn't like mushrooms, which are used for various culinary purposes, right? So mushrooms, especially the edible mushrooms, which are consumable, which can be eaten by many people, and large scale mushroom culture is a growing industry, which makes it believable that microscopic fungi too would become acceptable as food. Nowadays, earlier we would not get mushrooms in the markets, but nowadays it has become a small cottage industry as well, and it is also grown on a large scale, wherein inside a room itself they will use straw, then menus, that is cow dung manure and all that, and they will make a suitable bed-like structure wherein they can put the spawn or put the seeds of the mushroom. Therefore, they can culture the mushroom easily, and it will be cleaned and packed, and it will be delivered to different supermarkets across the world so that people can consume. Otherwise, the people living in the cities, from where will they get mushrooms, right? Because mushrooms usually it is not available for the people living in cities, but those who are living in a village area and all, for them mushroom availability is there in the season. But nowadays, if you observe, throughout the season, be it any season, mushroom is available. That is, the mushroom that is cultured is being available. And also the mushrooms are very much rich in proteins, and they are one of the best source of protein in terms of instead of eating animal meat. These are the best source of proteins, that is mushroom. So next, talking about tissue culture. So tissue culture is also one of the important terms that or techniques that we need to learn in this particular chapter, because tissue culture also helps in plant breeding. So tissue culture is one such technique wherein a small cell or a small plant part you can take from a plant, put it on a suitable nutrient media, and from that callus will start to develop. Callus is nothing but a mass of undifferentiated cells. They will start to develop. So each cell of the callus, if you remove and put it into a suitable nutrient media, it will develop into a plant. So imagine if a plant can produce in one season, if it can produce only 10 seeds, but in tissue culture, from that plant itself, you can take a leaf. Say for example, I take a leaf. So imagine there is a plant. If we are trying to propagate a plant in the term of seeds, what happens? Maybe that plant will produce 10 seeds. So only 10 seeds I will have. Out of that, 10 plants will come out, right? But in tissue culture, what happens is, I can select a plant of suitable interest. Then each small bit of this leaf, I can cut it into very small bits, and I can put it in the nutrient medium. After a few days, callus will start developing on them. So small callus, that is clusters of cells, which are undifferentiated cells, will start developing on them. So from that undifferentiated cell, I can separate each cell separately, and say for example, here thousands of cells may get formed. From those thousands of cells, I can generate thousands of plants. Where was just 10 plants from 10 seeds, and where is here thousands of cells from different leaflets. I mean, the different leaf cut into different pieces, right? So that is the advantage of tissue culture. So here, this is the best example wherein you can see plants being generated in tissue culture bottles, wherein they supply the suitable nutrient medium to it. So they supply it with hormones, that is plant growth regulators for shoot development. So if it is a shoot development, they will supply cytokinin. For root development, they will supply that is auxin. So like that, different nutrients and all that they will supply, and then they will raise plant out of it. So tissue culture was actually learnt by scientists during 1950s. So tissue culture, they use a explant. So what is a explant? So this here, I told you to generate a new plant, I used small pieces of the leaf. Now that leaf is the explant. So the material that you use in tissue culture to generate a new plant, that will be called as the explant. So talking about the explant, it was learnt by scientists during 1950s that whole plant could be regenerated from explant. So from this small portion of the leaf, or even I can take the internode of the stem. So if this is a stem, it will have lots of internode, right? So wherever there is leaf arising, there and all, it will have the internodal region. So this internodal region also I can cut and put it in the nutrient medium like this. And from that a whole plant can be generated. So that is when they found out that from small explant, a whole plant can be generated, and any part of the plant can be taken and it can be grown in the test tube under sterile conditions with the supply of a special nutrient media. In tissue culture, maintaining all cannot follow tissue culture. You have to be very precise, very clean, very hygienic, and you have to have great knowledge of handling it if you need to produce a explant. All are not able to do that. You have to have a good hands-on experience if you need to go in for tissue culture. And in tissue culture, there is one more word that you need to know. It is called as the totipotency. The totipotency is nothing but the capacity to generate a new plant or a whole plant from any cell or explant is called as totipotency. So what is explant? So during tissue culture, the part of the plant or a small part of the plant or portion of the plant which is used to generate it into a new whole plant is called as an explant. What is totipotency? The capacity of that particular explant to grow into a new plant with the supply of a particular nutrient medium is called as totipotency. Now these terms we know. Now we have understood what explant is and what totipotency is. After that, we should understand the term of micropropagation. Here, of course, we are doing micropropagations. We are using minute parts of the plant to propagate it into a whole new plant, right? So here the nutrient medium that we supply, say for example here they have taken a test tube. Into this test tube they have supplied it with nutrient medium. So what all should the nutrient medium possess? So what all the plants will make use of in a natural environment to grow properly, all that should be supplied in the nutrient medium as well. Here we are creating an artificial environment for the plant for it to grow properly. So here what should the nutrient medium contain if the plant has to grow properly? It should contain carbon source such as sucrose, and also it should contain inorganic salts. It should contain various vitamins, various amino acids, and also it should contain growth regulators like auxins and cytokinin. I told you auxin for the formation of root it is needed, and cytokinin for the formation of shoot it is needed. Of course, in the natural environment also the plant makes use of the growth regulators, that is auxin and cytokinin, for the root and shoot development respectively, right? So that is why same here, whatever, even they make use of the carbon source, the sucrose, because glucose is needed for the plants. We all know that. So all that, the various micronutrients, the vitamins, the minerals, everything should be supplied in this particular nutrient media. And by application of this method, it is possible to achieve propagation in a large number of plants in a very short duration. So in very short durations, you can get a very large number of plants if all this procedure is done in a sterile environment and with good precautions and with a proper nutrient supply to that particular media where the explants are placed. And this method of producing thousands of plants through tissue culture is called as micropropagation. Here we are culturing the tissues, small parts, be it a explant, be it that is which is called as the explant, be it the stem portion, be it the internodal region, be it small parts of the leaf, even carrot. The carrot that you have, that carrot part, that you can cut it into small pieces, and that also you can grow to generate new carrot. So imagine one carrot you will take and you cut it into, say for example, 10,000 pieces you cut it. 10,000 carrot plants you can generate out of it. Imagine. But to get seeds from carrot, it is very, very difficult. It is actually very difficult. But through tissue culture, you can propagate it very easily. Banana propagation is very difficult, right? Because banana, they are parthenocarpic most of the time. They are seedless, right? So we need to take the tuber. So one tuber of banana, you might get 1 or 2 plants you can generate. But imagine by using explants of banana, you can generate thousands together of banana plants. So that is why tissue culture is the most preferred one. So that is what is called as micropropagation. So it is a method of producing new plants from tissue. Producing thousands of plants from the tissues is called as micropropagation. So this is about micropropagation. So next is we need to understand the term called as soma clones. So the plants, now we have micropropagated. What have we done? We have taken the plant and the desired parts that we need, we have cut it into small bits and put it into a suitable nutrient medium, and we have maintained a sterile condition with optimum temperature and all that, and allowed the plant to generate. So from that, callus will start to develop. Those callus or those cells we will take and put it in one more suitable nutrient medium, out of which applied with all the growth regulators, the nutrients, the vitamins, the minerals and all that, and after few days what happens, the plants will start to generate out of it, right? So those plants now, they are actually called as somoclones. So why are they called as somoclones? Is because the micropropagated plants will be genetically identical to the original plant. Here, just like if we do self-pollination in a plant, what happens during plant breeding? We will get genetically identical. The plant will be exactly the clone of the parent if we do self-pollination. But if it is cross-pollination, the progeny would have taken the characters of both the male and the female plant there itself, of two parents, right? So therefore, minute variation will be there in the progeny. So here, like how we get clones in self-pollination in the case of plant breeding, just like that, in tissue culture, here, because the same plant is used or same explant of that plant is being used to propagate, another plant will not be involved here. So therefore, whatever characters was there in the explant, that only will be carried to the new plant that has been generated as well. Means the clones, it will be clones of plants. All the plants generated from the same plant will be clones of each other. So that is called as soma clones. So here the micropropagated plants will be genetically identical to the original plant from which they were grown. So that is, they are called as soma clones. So in tissue culture, the plants that are grown by tissue culture will be genetically identical to that of the other plants as well from which it was grown. So that such plants are called as the soma clones. And many important food plants like tomato, banana, apple and many more have been produced commercially by using this method of micropropagation, wherein soma clones of these have been produced very, very easily. So this is about soma clones. There is next one more thing, and another important application of tissue culture is the recovery of healthy plants. So here what happens is, we will be choosing, that is, healthy plants from diseased plants, even if the disease is infected with virus. So here what happens here is, say for example, a plant is diseased. So say I have a plant A, and this particular plant A, it is diseased plant. Now, when it is a diseased plant, and this plant has already set the seeds and all that, seed formation has already occurred in this particular plant. Now, I have the set of seeds from plant A which is diseased. Will I use the seed for sowing? I will not use. Why? Because the same character would have been carried to the progeny as well, right? If it has self-pollinated. So, I will not use it. So, in such cases, what we can do is, but maybe though it is diseased, this plant may be high yielding. So, I need to retain this character of high yielding in the progenies as well. So, what I can do is, so here maybe it is infected by a virus or bacteria or something. So, what I can do is, I can take the tip region, that is in the tip, either the root tip or the shoot tip I can take, wherein actively growing meristematic cells are there. So that particular meristematic region or the apical region and the axillary region where meristematic cells are there, those apical regions I can take and I can use it as an explant. Now, the plant that is generated from the meristematic zones which has been used as an explant will be free of diseases. So that is how healthy plants can also be generated from infected plants through tissue culture. So here, and it will be free of virus or any of the organism. Hence, one can what one can do, they can remove the meristem and grow it in vitro to obtain virus-free plants. And scientists, they have succeeded in culturing meristems of banana, sugarcane, potato, etc. So I hope you understood this concept. Tissue culture not only helps to give a large number of plants within few days, but apart from that, it also helps us to generate a disease-free plant from a diseased plant. So how can it be done? So in a diseased plant, say for example, a plant is infected by a virus, we might avoid using that particular seed or using that particular plant, thinking that the progeny that will be produced or will also be diseased. So that is why, or it will be unhealthy. So that is why what can be done is, from the diseased plant, wherever the meristem cells are there, we know that meristem cells are present at the apical region of the shoot and the root, and also at the axillary region, that is from where the leaves and all generate or the branches generate, that is the axis region or the axillary region. From there, that part can be taken, used as the explant. It can be put onto a suitable nutrient medium, and the callus that comes out of it, from that callus can be used to generate the new plants. And the new plants that have been generated by this method will be free of viruses, because the virus would have not infected in the meristematic zone. Why it would have not infected the meristematic zone? Because in that particular region, just the cells are still dividing. It is still dividing, right? It is newly formed cells that are there in that particular region. So that is how it can be done. But can we cut a tip of a shoot and put it in the soil and say that we can generate a plant out of it? It is not possible. So that is how we can do it through tissue culture. So for this particular reason, tissue culture is one of the great advantage. Next, talking about the different types of, that is, single cell proteins that can be generated from plants. So this particular method of tissue culture can also be used to culture plants which are a good source of single cell proteins. So far we studied about single cell proteins and microbes such as the cyanobacteria, one of the bacteria also we had taken as an example, and also we studied about that in mushroom as well, right? That which is a fungi, which belongs to fungi. So here, what is somatic hybridization? So somatic hybridization is nothing but, here scientists, what they do is they isolate single cells from the plants. So they isolate single cell from the plants and they remove the cell walls. So they digest the cell walls. So digestion of cell walls will lead to removal of the cell walls, right? So the cell walls will be removed. So what scientists will do? They will take a, say for example, from a plant, they will isolate a single cell, and we all know that the plant cells are covered by a cell wall, right? After that, they will remove that is, they will digest the cell wall. Digest cell. So this is the cell wall surrounding the plant cell. So they will digest the cell wall. Now the plant cell is exposed because it is not having cell wall. The cell wall would have been digested and removed, right? So that is why. And here, from that, after the digestion of the cell wall, now it is a naked protoplast, right? Because it is not having a cell wall. It is a naked protoplast now because it is not having a cell wall. Naked protoplast. The naked protoplast. So this naked protoplast, that is there, from, it will be taken from two different plants. So same thing what they have done here, no, they will do it for plant A, and the same thing will be done for plant B also. So from plant A and plant B, separately they will isolate a single cell, and that cell they will subject it into a process wherein, or they'll agitate that particular cell in order for the degradation of the cell wall. So now when the cell walls of both the cells have been degraded, what happens? It will be called as a naked protoplast because they don't have the cell wall. Now these two naked protoplast of plant A and plant B, what they do is, the isolated protoplast from two different varieties of plants, each having the desirable characters, that is the of our interest, they will be hybridized. They will be fused to, so these two, that is of A and B, they will be fused. So they will be fused to form a hybrid. So when the protoplasts are fused, what happens? Here, all the desired traits will be carried to the progeny as well, or the hybrid that is formed. So to fuse to get hybrid protoplast, which can be further grown to form a new plant. Now this hybrid protoplast, they will transfer it into the nutrient media. I hope you understood this. First, they will isolate a single cell from two plants. So any desired characters, whatever we want, that plants we will select two plants. From plant A, one cell will be isolated. From plant B, one cell will be isolated. These cells will be subjected to a process which will digest the cell wall of the particular cell, and now they are called as the naked protoplast. So these two naked protoplasts will be made to fuse, and therefore that fused protoplast, now it will be a hybrid. That hybrid protoplast will be put onto a new suitable nutrient media so that a new plant can be generated out of it. So this also, so imagine how many cells a plant has, right? Lakhs to millions of cells will be there in a plant. So imagine if we take each single cell, how many plants can be generated. So that is one of the best advantages of tissue culture, and generating such, so these hybrids are called as such hybrids through the protoplast, by using protoplast or by fusion of protoplast, is called as somatic hybrid. So there is difference between the somoclones and the somatic hybrids. Somoclones are when we use a explant in tissue culture, what happens, that is new plant that is generated from the explant will be like a clone to the explant, that is clone to the plant from which the explant has been taken, or clone to the parent plant. Why? Because it will carry the same characteristic. That is called as somoclonal. What is somatic hybridization? Here the protoplast will be taken, that is the cells, two cells will be isolated from each plant A and B. That cell wall will be removed, and now it is called as a naked protoplast. That protoplast is made to fuse, and which is now called as a hybrid. That protoplast hybrid will be cultured on a suitable nutrient media to generate a new plant, and such hybrid plants are called as somatic hybrids. So now we know what is somatic hybridization. So now let us see what are some of the examples for somatic hybridization. Like this, single cell proteins are generated. So here the best example for somatic hybridization is, here what they do is, they took a protoplast of tomato. So it is just, imagine, say for example, we can take a protoplast of tomato and fuse it with that of the potato. So I'll just write here. Here we have tomato plant, then we have potato plant. I have isolated the cell of these two plants. One single cell I have isolated, then I have removed the cell wall. Now it is called as naked protoplast, right? Because it is not having cell wall, naked protoplast. Now this naked protoplast, what we will do, we will fuse it and it will become a hybrid, protoplast hybrid. It is a protoplast hybrid. So this protoplast hybrid, I will put it in a suitable nutrient media. I will grow on a suitable nutrient media. And from this, a new plantlet will generate. Now that plantlet will be having the characteristics of both the potato and the tomato, and that plant was called as pomato. It has not come into the market yet, but what they did is, a protoplast of tomato was fused with that of potato, and then they were grown to form new plants which has a combination of the characteristics of both tomato and potato, and this has been achieved resulting in the formation of pomato, that is potato plus tomato. Unfortunately, this plant did not have all the desired characters that a plant should have to grow in a field. Therefore, this particular experiment was abandoned. But that is how they were able to produce in one plant, that is in one plant itself, tomato also was produced and potato also could be produced. So tomato was produced in the aerial part of the plant and potato in the below ground part of the plant. So that is how it resulted in pomato. So now pomato is a somatic hybrid. So that is how it is done. So this was about the single cell proteins and microbes, single cell proteins in plants, and also we studied about tissue culture, what are the advantages of tissue culture, and also we studied different terms in tissue cultures and how tissue culture is done, that also we learned. So with this particular session ends, as well as the chapter comes to an end with this. So we shall meet again in the coming sessions with a new chapter. Thank you.